So I have posted some documents on our website that can be of use to you. We're not going to go over them today, but if you need kind of an equity framework to help support equity work in your state, district, or school, or in your organization, we want you to know that those are available to you, and I will send out that link. It's on our webpage and under the webinar page, and just look for the STEM Equity Framework. Okay. So as of midday, this is what our participants look like. We have a really diverse group, as I mentioned. Our largest group actually are in higher education down there at the bottom, which I'm guessing are teacher ed folks. We also have some nonprofits represented. We have some district level folks, high school, middle school. We have a media specialist signed up, which is terrific. Someone who works at a regional level, one at the state level, and then actually someone who works in prison education. So that is terrific. We have and if you're not represented on those pie, let us know. So we should have a really great discussion. This is very interactive. We are going to be pretty flexible with the timing, so just be aware of that. So that we're on the same page, we're going to just talk briefly about why inquiry works so well from an equity stance. And one of the reasons is that it focuses on practices over tasks, right? It focuses on the process. Also, it really emphasizes the importance of argument and reasoning, and we see these across standards: English standards, math standards, next gen science. Inquiry is student-centered, and that is so important to student learning, so that's great from an equity lens. Also, inquiry is locally relevant, which is really key for student motivation. Inquiry also involves student research, so this is great because it's not just those rote tasks where we really lose students, but it has real-life applications, real-life problem solving, and these are great for equity. Inquiry definitely involves all of the language modalities: reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and so it makes us really aware of the importance of language and the need to develop academic literacy for all of our students, whether or not English is their first language. Also, inquiry helps provide access to those really key 21st century skills, and it's important for us to be attentive to all learners so that they can acquire those skills. So inquiry is a great match for doing equity work. So our discussion questions today are the following. The first one is, what tools are you currently using to facilitate equitable inquiry in your STEM classrooms or with the teachers that you work with? Now, if you're not sure about the top of your head if it's any tools to list, you might already be doing some of the things that we're going to talk about today, but maybe you hadn't thought of those in terms of equity, and that's okay. And the idea of our discussion today is that we can help you kind of reframe some of those activities or make some slight adjustments if you need to, so that you can be addressing those disparities to an even greater degree. So are we seeing, Stacey, are we seeing any responses in the chat box?
I'm not, but I am not convinced that I can see people's entries into the chat box.
I'm going to see if I can look. Okay. So if you are doing chat, can you make sure that you're addressing the entire audience, please? And John, I see that you had to call in on the phone. Can we hear you? Let's see.
It looks like he's muted now on the audio panel, but I don't know if he has muted himself or if...
And I can't even see that on the audio panel. Okay, let's see. There, unmute. There we go. That should do it. John, can you hear me?
Thank you.
Oh, hey.
That was a long time to be muted, John.
Okay, good, good. So let's see. Let's take a look at the chat box. All right. You know what? I'm going to Do you guys mind if I unmute you? If it gets feedback crazy, then we'll adjust. But let's see. I can't unmute everybody. Dang it. Oh, it was a good idea. Let's see. All right. I can go one by one. So, sorry. Okay. Let me look in the question box. So the question is, what tools are you currently using to facilitate equitable inquiry in STEM classrooms? All right. Well, we're either having technical difficulties or people aren't in the typing mood, so we can just go on. That's fine. And then the second question is, what are your needs in terms of tools for classroom inquiry? So I see Stacy's testing the chat box. Can you guys see the chat box? Oh, let's see. All right. Okay, so they're coming up in the questions here. Chani says hands-on activities and integration of technology. So I believe she's saying currently doing hands-on activities, and then the need is greater integration of technology. Wendy, I'm sorry you can't access the chat box. It seems that that's a shared issue, so I apologize for that. Okay. Okay. Well, we'll just keep going in the question section. That's fine, since that seems to be working. Okay, everyone's having the same challenge, so we'll just go in the question box. That's fine. Janet says a lot of group work for collaboration. So those are great in terms of equity, and we're definitely going to be talking more about doing group work throughout. Okay. Thanks, Wendy. Chani mentioned that collaborative activities, which is fantastic, of course, and that's something that kind of needs to be carefully managed, and I have a feeling you guys have figured that out. Mark says we use complex problems that students work on in groups that take 20 to 30 minutes or more to solve, and Mark is doing teacher preparation with both elementary and secondary STEM teachers. I actually got to observe his class the other day. It was really great. Very good equity lens, Mark. And Cave says that the 5E lesson design is helpful for all. The bulleted list under number 1, that is terrific. So that is really a good thing to share, the 5E lesson design. That's from Kay. Thank you. Okay. So let's see. So the contents of the session today, what we're going to do is, as I said, we're going to focus on inquiry. And these are the 3 handouts that hopefully all of you received. If not, they are available on our website. I emailed everybody yesterday, so if you didn't get it, you can check also your junk email box, because you probably have not gotten an email from me before. So again, since this is interactive, if we kind of go over on time and need to bump any of these to the next webinar, that's absolutely fine. So our inquiry topics are going to start with problem-based learning. Then we're going to look at digital tools for inquiry, and then a general STEM equity rubric. So for each tool, what we'll do is we'll introduce it, go through its different components so we're all kind of on the same page. And then I have 2 embedded videos on this PowerPoint to practice using the tools, and then we'll come back together to discuss how each one of these went. And just in case, if we have any technical difficulties with the videos, or for anyone that happens to be watching this archived afterwards, there are hyperlinks on the slides that will take you to the videos as well. So that's another option. So, and then at the end, we will close the webinar and ask for your feedback. And how we're going to do that is right after you exit the webinar, you'll receive immediately a survey from GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar. Okay? So let's start out with problem-based learning as inquiry. And this is our first poll. I'm hoping everybody can see this one. And the question is, how comfortable are you with problem-based learning? Never done them before, just getting started. Pretty good, but could use some more info, or lots of experience with PBLs. So, does everyone see the poll section? Oh, no, sorry. That was my, sorry, there, hopefully you can see it. Ah, there we go, we're getting the responses coming in. All right, those of you with lots of experience, I am hoping that you can share that as we go through this. All right, so it looks like everybody's voted. That's great. Look at that. All right, maybe we're going to skip this slide. That's great. All right, you guys better give me good feedback then. Okay, so this is a definition actually from Buck Institute. Students work in teams to experience and explore relevant real-world problems, questions, issues, and challenges. Then, as you guys know, since you have lots of experience with this, they create presentations and products to share what they have learned. So with you guys having really been familiar with PBLs, does anyone have anything that they'd like to add to this definition? Anything that you would change in this definition? Let's see. I know we have lots of expertise in here. Are we good with that? We'll just go on? Okay, that's fine. So the next thing we're going to do is we're thinking specifically in terms of equity. And I know that you have experience with PBL, so we're going to shift the frame a little bit. And we're just going to take a brief look at a teacher talking about why she uses PBLs. And we're going to think about ways that PBLs might address specifically equity issues. Okay, so that's going to be our next discussion.
Actually a very awesome experience, because those students, they were sitting there and they were thinking through it, they were thinking through the process, and it was very difficult for them. They've never seen these concepts before. There was no foundation there. However, it was my responsibility to build a foundation. So I was trying to build a foundation. I'm not trying to build a building all in one day. I realized that you have to go back, but you have to allow the students to struggle through it. So once the foundation is built, it's done.
You said 2, and 2 said 4, and 6. It's kind of hard to get the number in my after adding 2, so it's 8 years. And 12 adding 2 is 14. Oh, no, never mind.
Yeah, it didn't work, right? The projection didn't work, so you have to come up with something else. If I just tell you how to do it, what are you really?
Okay. So in terms of equity, what are the ways that inquiry can address equity in the STEM classroom? What do you think? I really wish the chat box was working. Oh, it was hard to hear the video. I'm sorry. And it seems like that would be, well, anyway. Hopefully because we have 2 other videos, so hopefully the sound is better. I'll even take my phone handset over to the speaker. Okay. So Chani says in terms of addressing equity, improving critical thinking skills. Yes, very much. Drawing on prior knowledge. John, you want to jump in here?
I think one of the issues that always comes up is to try something and then evaluate whether it works or not. And I think one of the issues that always comes up in this is that we kind of forget to look back after we do a project And I think what we need to do is look at whether everybody of gender equity has participated. And I don't know whether you keep a logbook or whether you just mentally kind of keep tabs on things. But I think anytime we do inquiry, I think by putting people in teams and by the responses so far, we have a lot of expertise in the forum. And I think it would be interesting to hear from those people about what they've seen work and what they've seen not work. And maybe we can share that, and I don't know whether we can share it through the chat or not.
Well, it looks like all we're getting are questions, unfortunately, but that's a great point, the participation, and if we get to it, that third handout is about kind of monitoring that. That's a good way to do it. Mark says that student strategies are valued. All students have an entry point into the problem. Chani says collaborative practice, definitely. Wendy, it asks each student to think and to share. That's just the participation that John was just mentioning. And Mark adds that it's a collaborative environment rather than a competitive environment. And that's definitely something that has to be cultivated, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Comments appear as questions. Is that, Kay, is that to me on the control panel? Because I think that's what's happening. And Janet mentions, okay, thanks, Kay. Oh, you're typing it into the comment box and it's showing up in the questions. Oh, boy. All right, we're just going to have to wing it. Janet mentions that it's a safe place to brainstorm. Absolutely. And that's, again, something that we really need to cultivate with our students, to establish that environment in the classroom where they are participating and they understand their roles, and they can work at whatever level they're starting at. Are you guys seeing the, Stacy, are you seeing the slides? Are you seeing the regular slides?
I can see the slides. I just can't see any of the comments or questions in the control panel.
Okay, but you're seeing the problem-based learning slide now? Okay.
Yep.
Great. Oh, perfect. Good. I wish everyone could be unmuted because that would be a lot easier, but the feedback gets to be an issue, so we're just going to have to do it this way. So this slide deals with that, the handout that's called 8 Essential Elements of PBLs, and there are really lots of great resources available, I think, as you guys are probably familiar with. My favorites are the Buck Institute and Edutopia. They've got great stuff with really detailed planning forms. John and I are talking about eCyberMission. John, do you want to mention that, if people aren't familiar with that?
eCyberMission is an outreach by the U.S. Army, and it's actually housed at NSTA, for those of you familiar with NSTA. It's designed for middle school kids, 6th through 9th grade. It's been active, I think, now about 5 or 6 years, but the idea behind it is that kids would do a community-based problem, actually go through a very structured format. And I think if you ever get a chance, you should just log on and to eCyberMission and just take a look. The current registration is closed out for this year. Judging will be starting in next month. But it's quite a thing to see how kids think and whatnot, and especially when they're not in your classroom. That's one of those definite things that we kind of forget about, that we need to evaluate how other kids do in other communities. And they do kind of structure the problem set, run you through a format, have the kids evaluate their work, and then re-evaluate and come up with another conclusion at the end. So if you need more information, please go to NSTA or to go to eCyberMission.
Yeah, and I think especially for this group who is already fairly experienced with PBLs, that they would feel comfortable, if they haven't tried that yet, that would be a good kind of stepping stone. So that's a great idea. So taking a look at the handout, I have a feeling that all of you are familiar with these different elements. So just for time's sake, is there anyone that would like any clarification on any of these specifically, or has any questions about any of these? I'd be happy to go through all of them, or we can go ahead and do the video. What we're going to do is use this tool, the 8 Essentials Checklist, to examine a community-based 4th grade PBL that's in Washington State and kind of pull out the different elements that we see so that we can use this as a planning tool. Does that sound like a plan? Okay. So any clarification needed, or we'll go ahead and go ahead with this. Let's see. Okay, let's see the video. So our discussion question is going to be, which of these 8 elements did you observe and which were missing? All right, let's see. And I want to hear feedback on if you can hear it or not. And I'm going to...
It's October in central Washington's wheat belt, and in the township of Waterville, everyone's on the lookout for a tiny critter called Rhinosoma douglasi, better known as the horny-toed lizard.
Now, when I was 13 years old, I drove a team of 6 horses on a rod weeder, and I saw lots of them there. And they're nice little animals. They eat bugs, and they do a lot of nice things.
We go into the dry creek bed, and we flip over rocks, and my mom and I, we found 10 right just along in here.
I actually see more on the road than out in the field. And you stop, and then you try to go out and find them, and sometimes it's hard. And if you're in a snaky area, you don't want to follow them too close.
I got one over. Dig in it.
For the past 6 years, the Lizard Project has been a key component of the 4th grade curriculum at Waterville School. Local farmers volunteer their time to record critter sightings on data sheets provided by the students.
I'd like to welcome everybody this morning.
On the first day of the project, the farmers bring their information to school. They meet their student partners.
Good, how are you?
And help them enter data on graphs and charts, which pinpoint the time,
So it's just 1 at 3 p.m.
place,
That's too far off.
and temperature for each site.
So then where else do we go from here? Do we have to log these in on the computer?
Yeah.
Okay.
The lizard data is used by researcher Karen Dvornich as part of a University of Washington program called Nature Mapping, an effort to quantify populations of common species across the country.
The Nature Mapping program is really simple. Tell us what you see and where you see it. And all the schools and all the different communities provide that information to us. So this is all new science for us, and it's just wonderful. And we don't know what the horny toads do. We don't understand how they live in the farmland. We don't understand what they do during the winter. We don't know if they freeze.
Working with 4th grade teacher Diane Peterson, Dvornich helped design core curriculum materials around the year-long project.
So we have to be reading and writing and doing math. So when I saw what the kids were supposed to do at different age levels, I said, oh, we have math, we have science, we have technology, we have art, we have all these components.
How to catch a horny toad. The first thing you have to have is a good eye.
When we do project-based learning, every learning style can be hit. The kids can use their own personal best learning style to accomplish the goal.
Well, that's a good picture. It looks just like the ones I've seen, actually.
We found that for some kids, drawing a scientific illustration that's labeled with all the correct scientific words is a perfect way for them to shine and to show what they know.
Cow is right there, has stripes on it.
During the project, students learn sophisticated computer programs like ArcView, and they display their findings on a class webpage at the end of the year.
26, 23, what maps do I need?
We start very simply with some paper maps, and we learn how to find township range and section. And now what does this look like on the computer?
Let's zoom into this area right here.
And we practice, and everybody has a turn.
There we go.
It's a long process, and there's a high learning curve. The technology is easier for the kids than it is for me.
We need to buy P28.
Involving the farmers who may or may not have had the best experience in school, getting them back into school for a really positive experience. They're just amazed at what the kids know. And relationships are formed between these kids and the farmers that go way beyond this project.
I don't like to call these young people kids because kids are young adults. These are young adults. They've got a tremendous teacher.
So you want to put your GPSs up this way. Those six numbers, those numbers you see there are satellites circling the Earth.
Later in the day, students travel to a nearby field to learn new techniques in lizard tracking with the latest ground positioning satellite technology.
They feel very comfortable with any of the technology nowadays. They follow their instructions very well because they're serious about it. See that word position? Tap on the position and look for status. It's not a field trip. When we go out there, the kids know that we're doing real science, and they're much more alert. If it was just a field trip, they wouldn't be there because what does it really mean? So if we know where horny toads are, we want you to go to that site, and we want you to write down that latitude and longitude on your paper. I've seen a huge difference when the kids realize that they are junior scientists. I treat them as junior scientists. I speak to them as junior scientists. I don't simplify anything. I define everything that I'm telling them so they can use the same terms when they want to talk to another scientist.
After receiving their initial instructions, the young scientists took off at a gallop, each hoping to be the first to spot a lizard.
Hey, want to see some in there, though?
But after combing the area, the only toad they found was the one provided by researcher Megan Lottie.
There she is.
She had attached a radio collar to a toad's back to demonstrate another way of tracking.
And turn it on and turn it loud enough so that everybody can hear the beeps. I think that this is far more beneficial than a lot of the science that I had done in my elementary years. And I think the fact that getting the kids out into the field and helping them understand science as real professional scientists do it using GPS and other technologies is very beneficial to them.
Hey, here? Yeah. The first time that I found out I was going to be doing horny toad work, I was really excited, and it's really exciting today because I've been working hard on these projects. I was hoping to be a marine biologist and a scientist, working with lizards and stuff, so this is really fun for me, and it gives me a heads up on what I'm going to do in the future, maybe if I make it, and so that's pretty much what I'm going to do. Oh, right here.
I like to see kids excited about learning.
Oh, wait.
And that's what I see when they're working on a project like this.
For more information on what works. So again, Edutopia is really, clearly that's where I got it. It's a great resource. So first of all, what was the problem for the problem-based learning? What do you think? Well, they don't know much about the horned lizards, and they live in the farmer's fields, so that's a problem. So let's go through each of the 8 essentials on the checklist. I'm going to say thumbs up or thumbs down, yes or no, and you can make any comments. So does this focus on significant content? Would you say yes or no? Yes. Yes. It does. So the teacher determined that this was important. It's definitely relevant to the students. It's they're doing maps, they're doing biology, graphs, charts, GPS, computer programs, web page, radio tracking. They're working in the local environment. So definitely we can see that here. What about developing 21st century skills? Do you think this PBL develops 21st century skills? Totally. Yes, 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 I agree. We see, the tracking case says, yes, the group work, the collaboration with the farmers, posting the findings on the web page, the relationship building, the GPS, says Wendy. Absolutely. So developing 21st century skills, we get a thumbs up on that one. Engaging students in in-depth inquiry. What do you think? Yes or no? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Yes, yes, yes. This is unanimous. So the farmers are like the students' clients, right? And the students are really motivated because this is a real issue in their own community. So definitely we know that they're engaged. They were pretty excited. I thought that was fun. And what about organizing tasks around a driving question? What do you think? Okay. See some yeses. I think they did say, what do you see and where do you see it? I think that the teacher could really, I don't think we really saw it necessarily in this video. I have a feeling that they did have a driving question, but potentially the driving question could be, what could we learn about horned lizards in our community, for example? Yeah, the question was vague in the video, I agree. So they're not showing us all the elements, I think, just in this video, but I have a feeling that they did them. What about the next one? Establishing a need to know. So this is that hook event, the entry event that generates interest and curiosity. And we know that the kids really were super enthusiastic. I don't think I remember seeing a specific entry event, the beginning of it. We kind of jumped in the middle, but we know that they did because the kids were super engaged with the process. And going out into the field, using real equipment, definitely they were, we could see the students need to know. And Wendy says, I think that having adults come to the students for information was a good hook. I know, I think that's so awesome. I love seeing the students in the position of being experts and the farmers consulting with them. That was really, that's a really great idea, and you could see how much the farmers were enjoying it. What about encouraging voice and choice to help motivate the students? What kinds of choices did the students have on this PBL that we saw in the video? I don't think we saw it too much. I know that some of them chose to draw diagrams or not. I think this is something that probably edited out somewhat, but that's one of the essential elements. The next one is revision and reflection. The feedback from any experts involved in the process, could be the client. I think we definitely saw this through the interaction with the farmers. We didn't see this in this video so much from the classmates or the teachers. And Wendy adds that students might specify what they focus on for learning about the toads. So this one, definitely we'd like to see more of that in a PBL, but we saw with the farmers, I think they really did a nice job giving the feedback. That was pretty cool. And then the last one, including a public audience with Q&A and with reflection on the process. Yeah, this is definitely a better example. Oh, sorry, I'm going to go back to that point, Kay. That's good. So the farmers are the public audience, and Kay makes the point, this is a better example of project-based learning than problem-based. In my area where the toads are disappearing, this could be a better case for problem-based learning. And the way, I think that's a good point. I think the way that their lack of knowledge about them seem to be a problem because they're in the fields, but they really don't understand. So it just kind of depends how you would frame it, I think. So this is one of the tools that you can use for thinking about PBLs. I think you guys probably have a lot of great tools on hand, but this is one that is nice and simple. So the next thing we're going to do is look at some digital tools that you can use either doing PBLs or other types of inquiry. Oops. And before we go on, Wendy said the website was cool, the students doing the website was cool, but I'd like to see something where students actually get up and present to the farmers as well, either to the farmers or to them as a group. Yeah, and I think that they probably did that, but we didn't see it. But they clearly had lots of interactions with the farmers, and they'd really developed some trust with them, which was neat. Okay, so let's move on to the digital tools. Okay, and there's a hyperlink in case there's any technical difficulties or for anyone watching later. And the discussion question for this video is, how could you apply this idea in your school or classroom or help teachers apply it? And for those of you that appreciate the students being experts in the last video, you're going to enjoy this one as well. This is pretty cool.
Ready to take his project out to Mrs. Wright's class and try it out.
This class at Washington Middle School in Olympia, Washington, is like hundreds of others across the country.
Can you guys hear this?
Teachers impart vital new technology skills to their students. Creative, but in this Generation Y class, seventh graders.
Is that better?
Okay, so this, I'm just going to voice over. They have websites. She says, how you didn't, well, you know what? I'm going to leave this for now. This is a really cool video. You can use the hyperlink and watch this. The students serve as experts for the teachers. The teachers are working on their lessons, and they consult with the students. So it's pretty neat. So we'll just go on. That's all right. Sorry about that. I tried to move the phone over, but it didn't seem to help. So we'll just go ahead and go on. So this is handout number 2, the digital tools, and this is based on Bloom's taxonomy. And you can see that, as you may know, that Bloom's has been revised. You can see the original here on the left-hand column, the original domain, and then on the right, the focus is more on process and on applicability to newer standards frameworks. Okay, so I'm just going to clear out some of these. Okay, so it's more on process. They're verbs, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this list that's on the handout. Okay. So first, for creating, this is when students create projects that involve video editing, storytelling, video casting, podcasting, and animating. Evaluating, showing their understanding of a topic or participating in evaluating a peer's understanding of a topic. So this is very helpful. You can imagine that this would get some use in an inquiry classroom. Analyzing, when students complete tasks that involve structuring, surveying, outlining, and organizing. There's some possible digital tools. Applying, this is when students are doing illustrations, they're presenting, or they're demonstrating, simulating. So Screenshot, Sonic Pics, Quick Voice, Photobabble, Keynote, Podomatic, Skype, those are some possibilities. Understanding, when students explain or blog or subscribe, they're doing categorization or they do annotations, or tweeting, right? So PowerPoint, we've got Google Blogs, Photobabble, Twitter, Bitly, and New Annotate. Those are some potential digital tools. And then remembering, when students recall, bookmark, list, search, create mind maps, we do that a lot, and write. Okay, so these are some possible tools that they can use for any of those. So any comments? Anyone want to comment specifically on any of these? And if not, what we're going to do is zoom in on evaluating. Let's see. And then we're going to do poll number 2 here. So looking at evaluating, this is when students show their understanding of a topic or they're evaluating a peer's understanding of the topic, which we're asking them to do a lot more these days, right? This is not that easy. So I'm going to do the next poll. Oops. Let's see, sorry. So of these listed, Google Docs, Poll Everywhere, Socrative, BrainPop, and Today's Meet, which of these have you used? It doesn't necessarily have to be an evaluating sense, but I'm just trying to get an idea of which of these you're familiar with. Google Docs, that's a big one. Poll Everywhere, okay. BrainPop, a lot of you have done that one. We were just trying to use Google Docs today, and we were doing we're struggling a little. I mean, it's a common one, but it's not always super user-friendly, I would say. There's some drawbacks. And John, did you want to jump in here about the evaluating piece?
One of the things that we talked about yesterday when we were doing a review, a lot of times when we do evaluation, you sometimes look at how people put things together and whatnot, and then you put your values on how they're evaluating things. I think a lot of times, I know as an administrator, a lot of times when you walked into a classroom, you were watching somebody do a presentation and whatnot, it's real difficult in the beginning of doing observations and observing teachers is to say, well, I wouldn't have done it that way myself. I would have done it a different way. I think a lot of times with students, what we need to do is if it's not our learning style and whatnot, that's okay, as long as the outcome is what is the matter. And a lot of times we kind of forget that we need to disassociate our own personal value system into this. One of the things that I forgot about, and just to mention, one of the things I've seen used quite a bit that is a good tool for equity in the classroom is clickers. And I don't know if anybody has access to those anymore or not. That, about 8 or 9 years ago, that was a vogue, and I don't know whether those are still in or not. But those are neat little tools. It gives everybody a chance to participate in the class. It gives you an overview about how everybody's progressing. And it gives you good movement on a topic.
Yeah, I agree. Those are fantastic. And I've actually had people doing sort of similar things using even things like Twitter to get that immediate feedback and then share it with the group, which is pretty cool. Stacy, you're a techie person. Do you have anything you want to jump in here with the digital tools? We may have lost Stacy. Let's see. Nope, she's on. Stacy? Okay. So any comments or questions on any of these? There's, these are new ones for me, I'll tell you that. And I checked out not all of these, but some of them. There's some really cool stuff. So I'm hoping this will be a good resource for you. And I'd love to hear back if you want to do any follow-up down the road and do some reviews of any of these or share how you used it. That would be great. And I do want to be in touch with the responses that you guys provided here. And if you do any follow-up, I'm going to get this back to you all through email. I've got the list of registrants, and it'd be kind of nice for us to support each other as we move forward with doing equity-based inquiry. So if anyone wants to opt out, of course, that's totally fine, but it would be nice to follow up with this. Okay. And just briefly, I think we're going to get a chance to look at the handout 3, which is the STEM equity rubric. And then we'll have to close pretty soon here. But this is based on, partly it's drawn from Common Core, it's drawn from Next Gen Science, and it's also drawn from best practices in sheltered instruction and language acquisition theory. So we're going to go through these points pretty quickly. But if you take a look at the rubric, the students are utilizing their L1 to process information, meaning their first language. And I don't necessarily mean languages other than English. This could be non-standard English dialects, correct? I mean, if we imagine students in a photo talking, that they feel safe to use their own language, whatever, mode of language that is, so that they're really processing and thinking deeply about the topic at hand. And this is when the classroom might get noisy, but we certainly can tell when students are engaged. The next point is that students are engaging in relevant problem solving, and relevant is, of course, the key word there, that it has meaning to the students, that really helps motivate them. Reading content-rich text. And now, if you have students whose first language is something other than English, ideally you're providing them with text in multiple languages. This might require some legwork on your part, connecting with community resources, and also working with a media specialist such as we have online currently. And but we want students really reading that rich text, as we know, and that meets with the standards as well. Then the students need to be using the technical vocabulary, not just understanding it, but utilizing those words. Those are the Tier 2 and Tier 3 words, the process and the content words, and so that's really important in terms of equity. The next one is that students are reflecting on their learning, and this is so important for all students to really use those metacognitive processes, and this also can be used as a form of assessment. It's important from an equity perspective that students are hearing feedback that encourages their continued participation, and this is meaning both from teachers and from other students. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, creating that classroom culture that is really a safe space for them to participate. Students also need to understand that teachers have high expectations for them, and we have to be really, really mindful of this with diverse students. We can assume that we're being clear, but this is something that we might need to make adjustments for depending on who our students are, and this is really important. We know about stereotype threat, and being mindful in this way is one small way to counteract that, right? And students really respond to this. We want to see students participating in reasoning, arguments, and critique. These are those key skills from across the standards, and also what we hear from industry folks. This is really important. And this is one of the things that can be facilitated by, again, something we were talking about earlier, the group structures. And those are the next 2 points, the small groups and with the whole class. We need to be really paying attention that our students are getting a chance to share their own knowledge. Could be someone from their community that comes in, or a family member, or something that they've learned, and the chance to share that with their group and with the whole class. And then finally, using these different representations and using evidence. And so this involves you creating different models and also broad forms of assessment that capture the student's content knowledge. So from an equity perspective, sometimes we get hung up on the language, and we need to really focus on content. And using these different types of representation can really help us in that area. So my question for you is, how would you use this tool? So you have this rubric. It's not that easy. People go into their classrooms and they shut the door, and there's not always time to partner with colleagues. So I'd like to hear from you guys. How do you think this would work? Would you videotape yourself? Would you partner with someone in your building? If you work with pre-service teachers, would this be something that you could use in your classes? What do you think? How could you actually use this tool? And John, you were talking about this type of tool with the Colorado model.
One of the issues that always comes up when you need to do this, we now, with the new evaluation program under educator effectiveness, some school districts, because of the number of evaluations that have to be completed, are building peer teams, and you go in and evaluate your peers. And it goes back to what I alluded to earlier about you have to disassociate yourself from projecting how you would do things based on your experiences and your teaching style and what you see as your colleagues. I think what's important out of this list today, and this is kind of critical, is that these are good discussion points if you're in a team, and where you can say, all right, we need to address this. Are we doing it? You come back and do reflective thinking as a group, and even though you're working on the project, maybe not in a problem base, but in a project base where you're sharing the same students and they're working with math with one person, science with another, social studies with a third, and language arts, and then maybe the art person is attached. How have we effectively actually connected with the kids and made sure that those projects are based on these skill levels that we're looking at right here. And I think a lot of times one of the issues that always comes up in education is time. But I think the reflective part, if you diagnose after the fact, I think it gives you a better understanding of what you need to do the next time you do it. And so that's my word to the wise today on this.
Yeah, that's a great point. And sometimes it can be a very simple tool that can help us kind of draw attention to things that, we get so busy during the day, we might not be paying attention to these little things. And so it just kind of helps you zoom in on stuff. So hopefully this is something helpful. I've seen a couple of comments with a positive response to this. And so I'd love to hear back from you guys. This actually concludes our webinar for today. I'd really, really like to thank you for participating and for your patience with the ever-present technical challenges. So if you have any questions or comments, you can post them here in the control panel, or feel free to email. My email is down at the bottom. I'd be happy to pass along your questions or comments to the other presenters. I think Stacy ended up having technical difficulties, unfortunately. And as you close out of the webinar, you will be receiving just a very, very brief follow-up survey. It would be great if you could give feedback on that. And like I said, we'll adapt the next webinar based on your feedback. So thank you for being here. It was really nice to have you. We had, like I said, we had a really terrific cross-section of folks participating today. And just for your information, here are the references that I used for today. And again, this webinar will be archived and on our website. And if you have any issues with that, I'm going to put my email back up. Well, actually, you guys all have my email. So thank you for being in touch. And thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Have a great day and a great weekend. And hope you're in good weather. So with that, we are going to close out. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.